My name is Dr. Clarence and welcome back to TV7 Live, where we get to give you all the hottest and top trending topics, broadcasting live and direct from Zimbabwe, Africa. Now, it seems the situation has reached another level. Or has it? We are seeing this release in today's Standard. It is titled Big Test for ED 2030 Push at Indaba. Now the ZANU PF conference has begun. What are we going to find out here? Yesterday we talked about, because that is what they are for. Enough respect to everybody who's watching us live. To those watching us live right about now, you can write your comments in the top chat or in the super chat, so I can get to your names, so I can give you my shout outs. Now we're seeing a response, counter response to the misguided statement by the General Chiwenga Voluntary Supporters Association. And these guys are defending Comrade John Paradza. What do they really reveal here in their broadcast? So what we're going to do is we're just going to read the first paragraph of this one. We did read it yesterday. Let it be clearly understood, General Chiwenga is the leader of the people of Zimbabwe, and the people of Zimbabwe are rallying behind him, and we will not sit idly by as rogue elements like John Paradza attempt to tarnish the name and derail the course of justice and progress. Paradza and his Dadaya faction represent a minority desperate to cling to power through undemocratic means, and their confrontational rhetoric is nothing more than an act of cowardice. So that would be a statement that we see coming from General Chiwenga Voluntary Supporters Association there. Enough respect to Lillian Mark. Enough respect to Renias Singo says, Mnangagwa failed the nation, he must be arrested. How are you doing there to Lillian Mark? That is a message there coming from one Renias Sango. To those watching us live, you can write your comments in the top chat or in the super chat. That's how I can get CNMs, so I can give you my shout outs. So yesterday we also came across a video, a leaked video that was showing Chiwenga regalia. Is it coming from this association, or it's a different association? So it's a different association. This other association is called Team General or Team Generali. We saw a leak of a video there from Team Generali. Now we are seeing an image emerging, and in this image we're seeing this guy wearing this regalia here. However, his face is not showing. Maybe he wanted to show the logo and the motto there on the cap. Now, the response from the John Paradza side. What do these guys say? This is their response. Counter response to the misguided statement by the General Chiwenga Voluntary Supporters Association. We find it necessary to address the baseless and divisive allegations leveled against Comrade John Paradza and the youth gathered in Dadaya by the so-called General Chiwenga Voluntary Supporters Association. It is both unfortunate and misleading for this association to attempt to distort facts and sow discord where unity and loyalty to the values of a revolutionary party, ZANU PF, must prevail. First and foremost, Comrade Paradza's message at the youth meeting was a resounding call for collective efforts toward the realization of Vision 2030 under the leadership of His Excellency President Comrade Dr. Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa. The reference to President Mnangagwa's leadership until 2030 is not only a recognition of his unparalleled commitment to steering Zimbabwe towards economic growth and prosperity, but a reiteration of the people's mandate as expressed through free and fair elections. His re-election in 2023 is a clear affirmation of the people's trust in his ability to lead Zimbabwe into a brighter future. The misguided attacks on Comrade Paradza by this so-called faction, sponsored and directly reporting to Xavier Kasukuwere, led by Munyaradzi Shoko of Children of Zimbabwe War Veterans Association, reveal a desperation to undermine. Right, so now here we're seeing this revealed. They're claiming that this is funded by Xavier Kasukuwere. What does that mean? There's been suggestions that if there is anybody who can remove President Emmerson Mnangagwa, it is Xavier Kasukuwere. Now, it is essential to state that ZANU PF movement is bigger than any individual, and attempts to pit leaders against each other are counterproductive. The President and Vice President, General Chiwenga, have a well-established working relationship rooted in the shared goal of advancing Zimbabwe's interests. Any attempt to drive a wedge between them is a betrayal of the revolutionary spirit that unites our leadership. Further, invoking the legacy of ZIPRA veterans and the people of Matabeleland in an effort to divide the nation is both irresponsible and dangerous. Our country has endured hardships in the past, and it is the unity of purpose across all regions and people that has led to strides we continue to make today. Let it be clear, the people of Matabeleland, like all Zimbabweans, stand behind the duly elected leadership of His Excellency President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. So we are seeing here a charged up response there coming from the supporters of John Paradza. Enough respect to Glotin Kiwani says it is wise to think this is most likely to be from Mnangagwa so as to justify the coming pounds on Chiwenga. Remember, we are dealing with the calculating men. I don't know about that, but just the designing and the type of material used on these clothes, it is a very cheap material. Not necessarily cheap, cheap in the sense that people without lots of funds will find themselves opting for sublimation printing, where the print can only be A4 size, right? So it is a printing where somebody with a low budget would do. And again, the sex not really showing the clothing in the sex, and we're not seeing anybody really wearing this regalia. But however, we're seeing this person wearing this regalia and his face is closed. Why is his face closed there? That is a cause for concern. It means this is being fueled by somebody who is a somebody who doesn't want to be identified yet. So what you're suggesting here, it's likely, however, there are other factors. It is likely, but that factor of this being a low budget printing, would they deliberately do that also to divert the attention, to make it a little bit different from the way the usual prints that is usually done? If it was coming directly from Chiwenga's involvement, we would see these materials being printed by Zimbabwe army printing companies. They got a lot of them. So we're seeing this response coming from John Paradza's team there. Anyways, how does it end there? In conclusion, we urge all patriotic Zimbabweans to rise above factionalism and personal ambitions that seek to derail the progress of our nation. That the progress that our nation is making, we remain steadfast in our support for the president and the government's transformative agenda. Let us remember that the true strength of our nation lies in unity and not in creating artificial divisions. The future of Zimbabwe is bright, and under the capable leadership of His Excellency President Comrade Dr. Emmerson Mnangagwa, we will achieve the prosperity we seek. So rather, these guys, they make a very clever and brilliant response there. They don't back down on the ED 2030, but rather they speak that there is no rift between President Emmerson Mnangagwa and VP Chiwenga, and then they speak on unity, citing Matabeleland on its own is divisive. This causes division among Zimbabweans, right? So that idea of Matabeleland, Mashonaland, EDC shouldn't even exist, right? Zimbabwe is one, and Zimbabwe, we are one people, right? So that issue shouldn't matter at all. In today's Sunday Mail, we then see this people's welfare a priority as ZANU PF Indaba begins. Okay, we did cover this one. But what else do we see? We see somebody just being featured in the press. We see none other than this guy who is rumored to be a potential President Emmerson Mnangagwa successor. His name is Frederick Shava, recently demoted, or was it a demotion? Because there is a speculation that he is being prepared to succeed President Emmerson Mnangagwa. So he changed his ministry so that this guy doesn't require to be moving so much as to be consolidating power in Zimbabwe. So here we see re-engagement policy a success, and that is Ambassador Shava. So we're just going to go over through the first paragraph here. Enough respect to everybody who is watching us live right now. To those watching us live, you can write a comment in the top chat or in the super chat so I can get CNM so I can give him a shout out. Now this one would read: former Foreign Affairs and International Trade Minister Ambassador Frederick Shava told Parliament that under President Mnangagwa's leadership, the policy of re-engagement and re-engagement has brought tangible benefits for the country. Big up to Saini Mateke, says an idea whose time has come is unstoppable. It is very true there. It is very true. Yes. Nobody can stop anything that is something. And now this one finally. What are we finding here? Big test for ED 2030 push at Indaba. What do we get in the Indaba? Now Indaba here. Let's jump straight into the release there. Party insiders say internal strife was evident ahead of the Congress, with problems repeatedly arising during the cell restructuring exercise. Mnangagwa's term of office is set to expire in 2028 under Zimbabwe's constitution. He must retire. However, his loyalists have been vocal, saying the constitution must be amended to ensure that he remains in office until 2030 and beyond. Mnangagwa has tried to calm the factional fights over the 2030 agenda, claiming that he will retire as stipulated in the constitution. This has not stopped his loyalists from endorsing the 2030 agenda. The ZANU PF Youth and Women's League have endorsed the 2030 agenda, which has found no backers in the army and war veterans. Sources said the youth were being railed upon to raise the motion for a constitutional amendment. Sources said that ZANU PF Deputy Youth Secretary John Paraza has also been meeting youths across the country to rally them to support the 2030 agenda. He has been crisscrossing the country, pushing the 2030 agenda, promising empowerment in return for supporting the constitutional amendment, a party member would say. Yesterday, party youths from across Zimbabwe met at the Dadaya Youth Training Camp in Shishavane, where they pledged to support the 2030 agenda. The youths were given empowerment startup packs to venture into businesses. Paradza, when contacted for comment, however, said yesterday's meeting was not in support of the 2030 agenda. It was a youth empowerment meeting organized by the Youth Empowerment Ministry, and it had nothing to do with politics. Paradza would say, I was there to introduce Minister Tino Machakaire as guest of honor. We were invited there as the ZANU PF Youth League to support the program, and it had nothing to do with any 2030 talk. Machakaire, the Youth Empowerment and Development Vocational Training Minister, said this meeting was meant to empower the youth. We gathered here to empower youth from across the country, giving them starter packs and to start businesses in various fields, Machakaire said. My message to the youth is that they need to be disciplined and be united as the ZANU PF family. Observers, however, said the timing of the meeting raised eyebrows as it happened days before the annual conference. Meanwhile, a shadowy ZANU PF group calling itself General Chiwenga Voluntary Supporters Association, which claims to represent the Unified Military Veterans, Women's Associations and Youth Associations, took a dig at Paradza, the one we just recently covered there. We see that happens now on the 22nd of October. Of course, preparations are already underway, so we can say this has in practice already begin. On the 22nd of October, we will see the ZANU PF highly anticipated and highly awaited for Indaba begin. But is the Indaba the one that is highly anticipated, or the succession issue and the Mnangagwa's inevitable exit following his term expiring? The Constitution of Zimbabwe is clear. It was set by Zimbabweans, and Zimbabweans spoke. Big up to Ngoni Chak says, who is Frederick Shava? I think you can search on our channel. We did a video on Frederick Shava. I'll put the link in the description box below when I finish this live broadcast. Also, Julie say, Brighton Nyambayo. Now, Frederick Shava was Minister of Foreign Affairs. Now, Pakait Kwaka shift mu cabinet. Now is the Minister of Education. And Professor Amoni Murwira is now the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who replaced Frederick Shava in the ministry. So Frederick Shava is one of the few ministers who served from the 1980 government who still remain. The other one is President Emerson Mnangagwa. So there are two guys who remain from the 1980. The other guy is a lady and is no longer in politics, Joyce Mujuru. Joyce Mujuru. Gloti Kiwane says, mine is purely a desire to know three parts of our country where the ideas of visionary leader, His Excellency President Mnangagwa, are bearing fruits. In a materiality note, we are still, as we began, poor. What I would suggest, big up to Lorecon Glovu, says Mnangagwa is the liquidator, as Grace said. Ngoni Chaks, what I would suggest, these politicians are not there for anybody's prosperity. And remember, national prosperity does not amount to personal prosperity. Of course, we need to register to vote and participate in our numbers. Right now, there's been suggestions that there was rigging in Mozambique, of the elections in Mozambique. But again, we see Valencia claiming to have won the election, meaning if people really show up in their numbers, it is unriggable. The number one way that ZANU PF rigs the election is people think the elections are rigged, so they don't participate. And then apart from that, have initiatives, individual initiatives, then community initiatives when it comes to pressing the government for your rights, where you are right, what you are entitled to, right? You have a right to venture into any business that you want. You have a right to get a mining claim. You have a right to get a farm, right? You have a right to be productive. You have a right to be availed funds. If you want to venture into business, you have all those rights. Those rights are not only limited to people at Mbare Msika, just because there was a fire. There, we saw the government act because there is media. Now, when there is a movement that is not pro-politics or pro-activism, but that is really pro-people and pro-results, it will create an impact and news, and the government has no option than to respond or pretend to be helping, and in pretending they'll be doing something. With that, I sign out. Dr. Clarence, TV7 Live, as always. Thank you for watching. Enough respect to Tinotenda Roy. Says, don't say numbers matter in voting, as if you didn't see what happened with the last election. I don't know what happened the last election, but when I went to vote, there was nobody in the queue. I think they had more than 10 people assisting people, right? There was nobody in the queue.